Adjourn? Okay, any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all's in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes, we're adjourned. Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the City Council meeting for January 20th, 2009 to order. First thing on the agenda, as always, is the roll call and the determination of the quorum. Amber, if you would, please.
Quaker? Here. Olson? Here. Kroger?
Here.
Costello?
Here.
Adcock? Here. LaCroix? Here. Martinson? Here. Weifenbach?
Here.
Okrepke?
Here.
Chapman? We have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. Just a reminder, if you have a cell phone, if you have a pager, we would ask you to turn those off, take them outside or destroy them, whatever your choice. And just a reminder, if your cell phone does go off during the meeting, the rule is that you buy donuts for everyone at the next council meeting, so it could get expensive. The other reminder is, if you wish to speak to any item, either on the agenda or during the general public comment period, we do have speaker request forms. They look like this. They're on the side table to your left, our right. And if you would fill that out and put the number of the item that you wish to speak to, that way we can make sure that we do not overlook you as we make our way down the agenda. Next thing, as always, is the invocation. And if everyone would please rise for the invocation, Pastor Steve Suffrage of the First Methodist Church will be giving, First Wesleyan Church will be giving the invocation. They'll be followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, I want to thank you for this day of January 20th, 2009. Thank you for giving to us today our daily needs that we needed for today. Thank you for this inauguration day for our country. I thank you for our state, and I thank you for our city. Thank you that we have these local governing councils, and I thank you for these men and women that you have placed into leadership within our city, and that you have allowed to gather tonight to discuss the issues that are going to impact each individual of our community. I pray, Heavenly Father, that you would be with our city, that it would go forward in a healthy, godly way. I pray that you would guide these men and women who lead our city with your principles. I pray that you would be with every person in our community. They would understand your love and respond to others with that love. I pray that you would be with the business that will be discussed tonight. We know there's been preparations and plans for what everyone will be talking about tonight, and so I pray that you would help each individual to look for the best of each person in our community. I pray that we would be able to look past our own agendas and come together for a consensus that would be honoring to you. I ask that each would be guided by you tonight and throughout this year. I pray, Lord, that these men and women elected to sit on our city council would be led by you, not to please men, but to ultimately please you. I pray this all in the matchless name of Jesus. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next thing on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. If anyone on the council or the staff has anything that we need to add to the agenda, if you could please turn on your light. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to add under items from Alderman, discussion on the special city council gathering workshop that we had Saturday.
Oh, very good. We will call that a 59A. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Yes, just an update on the parking garage if we could.
Okay. We'll call that 59B. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. If we could, under Alderperson's items, I'd like to have a report on the condition of East North Street.
Okay, very good. We'll call that 59C. Let's go to our City Finance Officer, Jim Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe 57 was tabled at Legal and Finance and should not be.
I was going to thank you for bringing that up. Item number 57, which is on the agenda, was placed there by mistake. This item was actually tabled at Legal and Finance and should not have been listed on our tonight's agenda, so we'll, as part of the motion, we'll actually be removing that from the agenda. Any additional items? Any additional items?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with the additions of 59A, 59B, and 59C, and removing item number 57. Everyone clear on that motion? Everyone clear on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Now is the time we need to approve the minutes for the December 30th, 2008 special council meeting and the January 5th, 2009 regular council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes for the December 30th, 2008 special council meeting and the January 5th, 2009 regular council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is awards and recognitions, and I'll ask Dean to come up and join me. There you go. Well, as always, it is truly a pleasure to recognize those folks that have served our community and our nation as veterans. Tonight, we honor Dean Facault, make sure I get that right, as our 2009 Veteran of the Month. Let me read the proclamation. In partnership with the Veterans Coordination Commission, the City of Rapid City is pleased to present the January 2009 Veteran of the Month recognition to Dean Facault. Dean served in the United States Army, or in the that was a bad mistake. He served in the United States Navy. Sorry about that, Bill. Yeah, I was going to say. For 3 years, and during that time, spent 1.5 years at sea on a carrier. He was honorably discharged in 1955. Dean served as a plane captain, where he was involved in making sure that all deficiencies were met for the pilots, all maintenance requirements were current, and that all planes assigned to him were well maintained. Dean's aircraft carrier was involved in the NATO exercise in the Mediterranean, where Dean, the pilots, and the crew received a NATO citation for outstanding performance for all planes meeting all mission requirements. He also received the award for the National Defense Service Medal and the Navy Occupational Service Medal. Dean is very active as a member of the Korean War Veterans Association, as well as the Veterans Honorary Interment Program. He does all the finish work, including all the final sanding, varnishing, and placing of handles and hardwares on their coffins. Dean has completed over 100 coffins for the VHI program. Dean is most proud of his military service record and the service to his country, his state, and his family. Dean, thank you for your service, and thank you for the dedication to the community. And Dean, if you'd like to share just a few words with us.
Well, I'm glad to be in this interment category because it's my way of helping other veterans in their last moments. I enjoyed every minute of my Navy life after I left boot camp. I guess that's about it. I just enjoyed all of it, and I couldn't wait to get in, and I'm glad that I did my service.
Are we going to put church? Let's have your wife come up and join us.
I know what you mean about boot camp.
Come on over here. Do you want to step aside here? We'll get a picture of you. Give it to you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chief, you want to go ahead and come on up? Don, why don't you go ahead and come up also? We also have tonight a recognition for a long-term city employee, Donald Schmall. He has been with our fire department for now 25 years. And with that, Chief, I'm going to let you share a few thoughts and words about Don. Thank you. Congratulations.
First, I guess I'd like to say a little bit about what a fire captain does. A fire captain in the fire service there are frontline supervisors, and they're really the backbone of the fire service. That's actually kind of where the rubber meets the road, if you will, where the work gets done. It's officers like Don that actually take the line into the burning house, and he also is responsible back at the engine house for probably 80 to 90% of the training of our young firefighters. So if you can say that we have a good or an excellent fire department, it's because of captains like Don. And he is one of our senior captains, does an absolutely fantastic job. He is looked up to by our younger firefighters. He's a leader and a mentor. He was promoted to captain in September of 2000, and he served at our Southside Fire Station, Station 4, for last 16 years, I believe. 8 as a captain, and served on our hazmat team for 12 years, and it was a leader, the team leader for 3 years. So, Don, I congratulate you and thank you for your 25 years of service.
I'd just like to say it's been a very rewarding and enjoyable career with the city for the past 20 years, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go over here and let's get a picture. See if I can see where he's sitting. Everybody wants to look at him. Thank you, everyone. The next thing on the agenda, as always, is a general public comment period. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at tonight's meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by the unanimous vote of all the council members present. And let's see, just one. We do have one request for comment during the general public comment period from Randy Hamburg, the Rapid City Chamber of Commerce. And as always during this period, we do have a time limit, so if you just watch the lights and when it starts turning yellow, you have about 30 seconds.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Randy Hamburg, and I'm the current chairman of the board for the Rapid City Area Chamber of Commerce. The purpose of my being before you this evening is to make you aware that the Chamber is in the final stages of evaluating a proposal that the term of office of mayor be lengthened to 4 years and the term of office of council members be lengthened to 3 years. Over the past several months, our Senior Advisory Council, our Governmental Affairs Committee, and the Board of Directors have discussed the benefits of these longer terms to office. As an organization, we have concluded that lengthening of terms of office for both offices of mayor and alderman would contribute to the best interests of good government by affording office holders an opportunity to more methodically and programmatically analyze their decisions and the manner in which they direct government operations without the burden of standing for re-election every 2 years. The method by which we believe the changes should occur is by passage of an ordinance prior to this year's municipal election that will establish a 4-year term of the office of mayor beginning in 2011 and phase in the lengthened terms of office of alderman standing for election in 2011 and 2012. Before I go any further with my comments, let me assure you that we are not suggesting that the current terms of office have produced less than quality results. However, as our city has grown and the complexities of governing have become ever more challenging, we believe the lengthening of terms of office will provide you, as elected officials, a better foundation on which to govern. Another purpose of my being here is to inform you that we are now at a point where we believe it is appropriate that we solicit comments from you and the members of our community before we make final recommendation. As such, we are scheduling a town hall meeting to present our proposal and receive public comments. We anticipate this town hall meeting will be scheduled by mid-March. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Since it is not on the agenda for action tonight, I would suggest if there is any interest in this topic that it would be placed on Legal and Finance for further discussion. We do have a light from Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Was there a discussion of, Randy, of a home rule charter?
No, there's not. Not in this recommendation.
So this recommendation is only to lengthen terms of office
Of both the office and the alderman.
Is there a companion proposal that would also include term limits or anything like that that goes along with the increased terms? Length of the term?
Not at this point.
Okay. As I would, I would ask that this not be on a Legal and Finance agenda until this is vetted more publicly. As you've said, there would be a town hall meeting on this, and I also think that if a change like this occurs, it would be best if it was a initiated measure, rather than asking the current council to lengthen terms of office. And I think there needs to be a big discussion on this, and I do not think that it would be appropriate to move forward right now with drafting ordinances and passing this until there's extensive discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? There again, let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I respect what Sam's saying there, but I think the best way to get discussion is get it out in the news and discuss it maybe on Legal and Finance, maybe not carry it further from there, but at least bring that up so we're getting the discussion started. Is that a good way to put it? So I think there needs to be many meetings, like has been discussed, and maybe it needs to be voted on by the people as an initiative. But again, I think we could start the discussion on Legal and Finance, and I would offer that motion, if we could, to put this just for a discussion item on Legal and Finance.
There again, just a point of clarification, since this actually wasn't on the agenda. Any alderman can actually place it on the agenda at Legal and Finance, but I'm not sure that it's, I'm going to look to Jason, is it appropriate to, yeah, I was going to say, it's not appropriate to actually make the motion, but if that's a desire of the council, they can actually have it placed, any councilman can have it placed on the agenda, correct? Okay. Nope, doesn't have to be tonight. We can have further discussion. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Mine is a procedural question. Do we normally have discussion under general public comment? I don't
Not
think
typically,
so.
but we saw a couple lights, so.
Okay.
Yep. Any further discussion? If not, thank you for your suggestion. Okay, I do not see any additional speaker request forms. Okay, we will go to the public comment hearing period. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period on items 3 through 52, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are taking public comments on items 3 through 52. I do have a speaker request form on item 21 from Ann Van Loan.
Good evening. I am Ann Van Loan, the Executive Director of Western Resources for Disabled Independence. Kathy Ertl was on the Mayor's Committee for Transit, Rapid Transit System, and she is unable to be here, so she asked me to read a letter. So it's a quick one. Dear fellow citizens, and to the Mayor and City Council, men and women, I was appointed to the Mayor's Committee for Rapid Transit System. I, before, opposed the increase in fares for RTS. Zone 1 being $2.50 per ride. Zone 2, where I live, being $3 for Zone 2 per ride. Anything over 3/4 a mile from the bus station is Zone 2. Knowing I can only afford one pass for Zone 2, $30, will be difficult, but with the economy the way it is and the fact that RTS hasn't had a raise in 16 years for fares, I understand. I will support the fare increase, knowing that the largest percentage of riders, either Dial-A-Ride or Rapid Ride, are lower or fixed income was a great concern to me, but I still support the rate increase. It will mean I have to tighten my belt, take fewer trips, and ask for money for birthdays and Christmas for bus tickets. I hate to say this, but with the economy the way it is, we all have to tighten our belts. Good wishes to all of you in the new year 2009. Sincerely, Kathy Ertl.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, I do not see any other speaker request forms on item 3 through 52. Anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to items 3 through 52? If not, the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment periods on item 3 through 52. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to the consent calendar, items 3 through 52. Chair would ask for any of the items 3 through 52 need to be removed from the consent calendar. If so, please turn on your light. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Item 21.
Item 21. Any additional, please turn on your light. I'm going to ask the 29 be pulled. Any others? If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve items 3 through 52 with the exception of item 21 and 29.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So that does take us to item number 21.
Item number 21 is to approve the recommended increased transit fare rates. I would move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the recommended increase to the transit fare rates. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I do understand why this is being brought forward. It's been many years since a rate increase, and the rate increases, seem relatively small when you look at it as one ride. However, on a percentage basis, it is a very large increase, and this will really have a very significant impact on the folks who ride rapid transit and Dial-A-Ride, and with the economy being what it is and the fact that many people who are riding the system are getting hit the hardest, I do not like the timing of this, and I would prefer a more phased-in approach rather than such a large percentage increase. So again, I do understand why it's being brought forward. I do not like the timing of it, and I think that a phased-in approach would be more acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes with 1 no from Alderman Sam Quaker. Item number 29, please. Alderman Quaker, if you could read that in.
Item 29 is confirmation of appointment of Deb Hadcock, Ron Kroger, Ron Whiffenbach, Denny Langeth, Tom Hennies, Gary Brown, Dave Hillard, Dave Janik, and a representative of the County Commission to the TIF Project Review Committee, and move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. The reason I did ask to have that pulled, we did get word from the County Commission that Brenda Young has volunteered to serve on this committee, so I would ask that the motion maker accept that or make that part of his motion.
It is.
Okay, very good. And that's all right with the seconder?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Quaker, did you have discussion on that? Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make one clarification for the record. Is when this committee came forward, it was, I think, that the terms were indefinite, but the reality is that the terms are prescribed by the definition of the office that each of these individuals hold. So the terms of office do expire, or these positions come vacant as these individuals leave their elected or appointed positions. Did I make a fair statement on that? Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that discussion. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? And I should say, everyone clear on the motion by adding Brenda Young's name. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That does take us to the end of the consent calendar. We are on to the non-consent calendar, items 53 through 62. 53 through 62. Chair, look for motion to open the public comment period for items 53 through 62, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the public comment period, items 53 through 62. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We do have a couple speaker request forms on item number 54. We have a speaker request form from Jay Davis on item 54. Mr. Davis.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. A number of us have worked for a number of months on a proposed rewrite of the Human Relations Commission, working with Alderman Malcolm Chapman, who of course is in a bigger political arena tonight, and City Attorney Jason Green. I've got certain comments on this, and clearly the rewrite, the amended ordinance, is not everything that some of us wish it would be. It does represent substantial pruning back of what's currently on the books. But I've decided to speak in favor of this because it's been 20 years since the City of Rapid City actually had a functioning Human Relations Commission. It's not just you, Mr. Mayor, but none of your predecessors saw fit for approximately 20 years to appoint members, and I think there still is a serious issue with discrimination in Rapid City, as there is in most communities in this country, and that we have not outgrown the need for the commission. So I'd rather have half a loaf and get it back up and functioning, and then maybe come before this council proposing further refinements than have nothing at all. While the new ordinance did repeal much of the substance, specifically the power to issue subpoenas and the power to make decisions subject to appeal to circuit court, there are certain important powers that the commission gains or retains. Specifically, as I read it, the new Human Relations Commission would make findings and recommendations which would be forwarded to the State Human Relations Commission. So we'd have a body, a fact-finding body here on the ground close to the problem, and I think that's a positive. The other thing, and this was not in the original ordinance, so I see this as an improvement or a refinement, is that the new ordinance would provide for referring cases to mediation. I believe that prejudice and discrimination is often actually based on fear or ignorance, and that there's, especially in minor cases of discrimination in housing or employment, that there is a role for mediation. If we pass this ordinance, I think we're going to need PSAs to advertise that the commission's back up and running. I don't think we're immediately going to be flocked with grievance coming before it, but that doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile to put it back in business. I know it's also been proposed that this ordinance be amended to add discrimination on sexual orientation as an additional category in addition to race, gender, religion, and the well-known categories. I've struggled with that issue because in my mind it's clear that discrimination in housing, employment, education, any of those areas according to sexual orientation is wrong. And just as we've made progress on the issues of racial discrimination or gender discrimination, I'd like to see progress made there too. But I think in saying that we need a law to outlaw discrimination based on sexual orientation, that really that case needs to be taken to the state legislature or even to U.S. Congress, and that the city cannot get out in front because of Dillon's rule. And I think it would be cruel and contradictory to put language in the preamble only saying it's the policy of the city of Rapid City that we don't approve of discrimination according to sexual orientation, and then provide no redress in the body of the ordinance. So I think it should be consistent that if you're not going to provide for hearings and recommendations to the state commission for people who claim that they've been discriminated against according to sexual orientation, then it shouldn't be in the preamble either. It's an idea whose time hasn't come yet, and it needs to be fought in another forum. When people first fought the issue of racial discrimination, they didn't get anywhere. It took multiple attempts, and I think it's going to be the same here. So I would support, with some reservations, the proposed ordinance as written.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We also have a speaker request form from Richard Fisher, item 54.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I am here to also speak in favor of this amendment on the same assumption that it's better to have an amended code that is enforced and working than one that's stronger but no attention is paid to it. My name is Richard Fisher. I'm a retired United Methodist pastor. I was raised in a religious tradition that taught me to sing songs like red, yellow, black, white, all are precious in God's sight. And when I was in seminary in New Jersey, I was a participant in 1963 on the March on Washington. And my watching the events of this past weekend and experiencing that something calls forth the better part of my human nature when public officials take public stands for human rights. I think the words and actions of you leaders, whether the actions you take, can either play to the basest nature of human beings or can call forth that which is noble and compassionate and just within all peoples. They can work for a unified community. Some wit once suggested that most communities have become so divided that the only thing that holds them together is the sewer system. And I think all of us have a better picture of Rapid City than that. And so I think the action that you are considering is important for the following reasons. One, it says that you as leaders of Rapid City are willing to say that fair play, equal opportunity, and full protection of the law are essential parts of this community's values and actions. And secondly, it says that you are establishing a process by which citizens of this community may have their concerns heard and acted upon. And thirdly, it says you are establishing a process by which citizens of this community are protected from false charges and complaints through a due process of law. And for those reasons, I urge you to give positive consideration to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Seeing no further speaker request forms, Does anyone else in the audience wish to speak to any item 53 through 62? If not, the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period, item 53 through 62.
So move.
We have a motion and a second to close the public comment period, item 53 through 62. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 53, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 53 is first reading of ordinance 5460 regarding supplemental appropriation number 1 for 2009, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 54, please.
Item 54 is first reading of ordinance 5377 to amend the Rapid City Human Relations Commission by amending Chapter 2.64 of the Municipal Code. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. In light of some of the comments that were made today, maybe we should, between now when we approve the first reading and it goes back for the second reading, we can address some of those issues that were brought up earlier today. They made some good points. I'm thinking that if it should be at a state level or federal level before it comes to here, I'm not sure we want to be the pointy end of the spear on this one. So I'm going to have just a little bit of concern on this, and maybe we can look at it a little more closely and take some of the comments and from some of the people here tonight and come forward with a more appropriate ordinance that meets the requirements a little bit better. So I'm going to support this. I'm going to vote in favor of it, but I certainly would appreciate if we could look into some of the concerns and bring forward a more appropriate ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, as chairman of this committee, I wanted to take the time to thank some of the members on there, which was Kevin Tom, Jason Green, Jay Davis, Paula Lomfox, and I don't remember Evelyn's last name, but Evelyn, and then Father Paul Sneevy. We met over a 6-month. Evelyn Kelly. There we go. We met over about a 6-month period, and we discussed numerous different items to discrimination. We also retrieved data from Sioux Falls and other areas of what their commission had done, and we talked about discrimination in Rapid City. We actually had examples and cases that we discussed, and that's why it took us 6 months. It wasn't just an ordinance, but we discussed many subjects throughout the 6 months. Towards the end, we had a group come in, and they suggested that we add the other language that we've talked about, and we agreed towards the end that it was federal and state needed to change the legislation in order for us to follow it. It wasn't legally binding for us to do. But the people worked hard. They all did. They all discussed it. There was a lot of emails going through. I guess I do have a question for Jason. When we started the committee, our direction was to redraft or take a look at the ordinance and go through it. And I think we've done that, and I think we did a good job. And I think it's a work in progress, as Jay was talking about. Not everybody was happy with it, but I know we can come back to it. But I'm thinking the direction the committee had was to do that, but the original motion on the floor from Legal and Finance was request a reformation of the Human Relation Committee. So if we pass this tonight, is that also given direction to reinstate the commission?
Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There wouldn't be express direction in the council's action to ask the mayor to reappoint the committee. I think it's pretty safe to assume that if the council adopts the amended ordinance, they've expressed their intention that the committee be formed. And I won't speak for the mayor, but I suspect that after the ordinance becomes effective, you'll see appointments to it.
Okay, let's go back to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
I guess the final comments I have is if anybody would like to sit down and discuss some of the stuff that we talked about, I'd be more than happy to follow up with him on this. Otherwise, I'm open for questions too. Thank you.
Very good. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I'd like to thank everybody that was a part of this, that brought it forward, that made this process come forward and be where it is today. It is a positive step forward. I was pretty excited when it did come forward and we were making a change toward the good. It's just a good way to take care of all people of our city and treat people equally. So I think that's a step forward, and anything we can do to make relations between people a lot more positive, it's a good way to do it. So thank you all for serving, and this is a positive step forward.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I too support this ordinance, and I do hope as it moves through the process and is enacted that it is more than simply a decal on the window of the mayor's office. And not being critical of our current mayor, I just think that this ordinance needs to be enforced. We need to have a committee. They need to meet regularly. And I think as we move through the process, and I think we need to take another look at what Sioux Falls does. They not only do they have a human rights commission, they staff it, and they receive federal funding to hear employment, housing, and disability discrimination cases that would otherwise go to Denver or Minneapolis, and it gives the opportunity to have those hearings held in town, and there's great advantages to doing that. There are also some disadvantages as well, but it is definitely worth considering, and it is a very hard time to pitch the idea of a new FTE. But I would note that if we did staff the Human Rights or Human Relations Commission like Sioux Falls does and hear those types of complaints in-house, that we would receive diverted federal funding that would otherwise go to the federal agencies involved. And I think that we should pursue that. However, it might require home rule in order to do it, but it is worth at least looking into. The other thing that I would like to mention is and I think that this could be addressed. To realize that this ordinance covers more than just City Hall, but I also believe that city employees should be free to discuss issues with their elected officials anytime without fear of retaliation or being hauled to the woodshed. And this concern came in my mind also a few weeks ago when I listened in on the school district's hearings, and those concerns have been raised as well at the school district level, and so we're not the only unit of government that deals with that issue. But currently the rules are being interpreted that issues that are subject to the grievance process cannot be discussed with a council member, and that concerns me because just about anything can be subject to the grievance process. So I would like to see the ordinance amended, and quite frankly, I think the city employees already have the freedom to talk to us at any time, but I believe that issue does need to be addressed because there does appear to be confusion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to pass on again. This all come about from Mr. Davis. He has been talking about the human relations for quite a while, and so I'm very pleased that he took the initiative and the challenge, and he kept it moving forward. He's been talking with, for 3 years that I've been on the council, and it's finally come to light, and so I'm proud of that. To address what Alderman Quaker says, I do agree with that, but I'd like to see that added as a separate item on legal and finance myself, if we could. Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I also agree with Alderman Quaker. I think we don't have to add that to this amendment, but I think there is something to some teeth that he's talking about on the process on which employees do grievances and a couple other things with our process for employment here. I think it's something that has some teeth to it, and then we can add it to legal and finance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I know we had an email, and Jason did a good job of trying to explain it to us, but I was a little bit still confused on this. What Alderman Quaker has brought up is saying that, and this is what the way I understand it, is that in certain instances, or perhaps any other time, that we have to be careful, or they have to be careful, coming to talk to a city councilman. Is that anywhere close?
Okay. I'm going to let Jason Green address this, but Jason, during your answer here, I think we're getting completely off the topic of human relations. The discussion as far as city council, or as far as city employees, is a question. There's been some dialogue from the city council, and help me out here, Jason. I don't think it really fits into the discussion as far as a human relations commission, but I'll let you answer that.
I don't think it's anywhere close to the Human Relations Commission. If you'd like me to respond to the question, I will, though.
Would you please?
The answer is that state statute requires that members of collective bargaining units deal with the governing body's designated representative for matters that are subject to collective bargaining. It also prohibits members of collective bargaining units or their agents from attempting to coerce the governing body with regard to the selection of your designated representative for collective bargaining. It's the only limitation I'm aware of that on communication between city employees and elected officials. As far as the grievance process goes, the collective bargaining units have negotiated grievance processes, and they're required to invoke those before they take those issues to the Department of Labor and to Circuit Court. So it's really a matter of whose authority are we talking about here. All city employees work for the mayor. The mayor makes those decisions. So those topics really are not appropriate for discussions at council level.
Okay. Bill, anything else?
Well, I appreciate you wanting to rein it in. I was just, I do have some concerns about my ability to speak with the constituents, and so if it's more appropriate at a different time, then so be it. No, wait till then. Thank you.
Very good. The motion on the floor is actually approval of first reading of the Human Relations Commission. I would suggest if there's any further discussion or concern dealing with city employees and the ability to discuss them, that is an issue that is more appropriate to be brought up on its own merit at a legal and finance. So we will limit the discussion. I think I've allowed an awful lot of latitude on this issue, so the discussion will be held just about the Human Relations Commission amendment pending before us. Discussion on that motion. Motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 55, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 55 is first reading of ordinance 5393, creating a life safety loan program by amending Title III of the Municipal Code. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 56, please.
Item 56 is recommend designating the North Elkvale property as the site for the soccer complex. Yield to the floor.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the recommendation designating the North Elkvale property as a site for the soccer complex. We have a motion and a second for approval of that recommendation. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to note for the record that I'll be abstaining from this because this property is one of the owners that my wife works for, so I'll be abstaining.
Very good. We'll also note that. Further discussion. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was very clear from the discussion at Legal and Finance that this committee that has worked, taken a look most recently at soccer, and Malcolm Chapman has chaired that effort. It was very clear from a presentation that was made, a spreadsheet that explained the advantages and disadvantages of various sites that were proposed, and it was pretty clear that the Elkvale site was the site that most satisfactorily met the needs of the organization and the needs of the city as well. So with that in mind, I will be in support of the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I wasn't available for the Legal and Finance Committee meeting. I too am on a committee for this recommendation, and I want to make sure that we understand it was a majority vote. It wasn't a unanimous decision. And at a certain level, understanding that the presentation that was made to the Council of Legal and Finance did not represent the facts. And facts, unfortunately, you all realize that I'm a factually oriented person. I feel obligated to give you that information. The fact is, and I think there's some confusion on the infrastructure costs for this site. Were not considered in coming to this conclusion. And there was a vote on bringing this forward as a number 1 versus number 2. I don't recall the specifics on the site of Wally Byam site versus the North Elkville Road site. There are substantial costs involved in, and it is attached to tonight's agenda, and I'm hoping that every council person had an opportunity to review that. In reference to, I believe, looking at some of these numbers, over $4 million on a low basis to make the Elkville site, 4.3 roads, water, and sewer to that site for just, in essence, to build a soccer field. Wally Byam site in the tune of $900,000. Understanding these aren't scientific estimates, they were estimates that were put together by our city staff. And in light of that, I have a hard time telling the soccer people, yeah, you can build a soccer complex on a site that's going to cost you $4.5 million to get the roads fixed and sewer and water to it. And I think at some level, these people believe that the city is going to provide that infrastructure to those sites. And I guess this is where the decision needs to be made. Either we're going to move forward with it and we're going to tell these people that we're going to provide infrastructure to this site, or we're not going to provide infrastructure to this site. During the review process, it is obvious to me that I'm a little bit disappointed in the process, understanding that there's certain, the mayor had appointed people to this review committee. And since then, if people were to acknowledge some other level of thought process that didn't point to this site, they were publicly beaten. And they have since been beaten again by letters to the mayor and specific people on this review committee, which very much disappoints me in the soccer organization's ability to have a review committee put together to try to help them move this project forward, with understanding at the end of the process there was only one opportunity in sight, and that was to pick this site, bar none. If you look at the numbers and you see that it's $4.5 million to provide roads, water, and sewer to the Wally Byam site, I think that there would have been a difference in the Legal and Finance Committee. And my question to you, Mr. Mayor, is who's going to pay for this? At one point, there was a TIF that was presented that got shot down. I'm telling these people here, they want to move on with their complex. We as a council have to decide, are we putting this money forward? Are the taxpayers of Rapid City adding to the $3.8 million to put this site forward? It's not just as simple as saying this is the site to build the fields on. It's not that simple. There's a lot of costs involved. Those are facts. I believe that there's a lot of other opportunities in both areas, Wally Byam, Elkville, but at some level there has to be a consideration for what is this going to cost the taxpayers of Rapid City, and what is feasible and economically and what makes sense. And if we leave here tonight and tell these people we're going to build this on Elkville, I'm hoping that this city council is set with a proposal and an answer to tell them how we're going to pay for the infrastructure to get there. Because they have $3.8 million in 2012 money, zero money in revenues generated that I'm aware of to match these funds. And yet we're going to tell them, yep, go ahead and build it. We're giving them some sort of a false hope or false presentation, and I'm not comfortable with that. I'm really not. I'm hoping that this committee would have came to some sort of an answer with the city council. But I can say one thing: it has led to bringing it up here on the table on the dais to have an open discussion about it, an open and honest discussion that makes sense. Either they move forward with this project and they understand what their part of this project is, what they have to pay for, what the city is going to pay for, who's going to provide the infrastructure to the land. You know, with that being said, I'm hoping that you guys look at this and you think about that. I mean, to tell these people, yeah, this is a site we want you to build it on, go build it, but we're not going to give you roads, water, sewer, any of that to get there, I think is irresponsible. Or they're being told that they have to provide those services one way or another. I think that that'll give them the opportunity to move forward one way or the other. The other thought is on Elkvale Road, which is in a floodplain. There is no flood maps in that area where this 80 acres is. There's no FEMA study. There's no nothing done on that. So that is another consideration that wasn't brought forward in this recommendation that I think you guys should be aware of. So with that being said, I'll leave it up to the floor for you guys to visit about and maybe kick it around, but give these guys some direction.
Thank you. Just point of clarification, if I can, Alderman Weifenbach, did you have some concerns as far as the makeup of the council or of the task force?
Absolutely, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. After sitting on that review committee and understanding, and you received a letter from someone in the soccer association telling you not to basically have any reference to one of the specific people that you appointed to the committee, I do. The other part is having a public humiliation of people who come in with a different viewpoint. I disagree with that, Mr. Mayor. I'm not here to volunteer my time to this city and do what I think is right. Present the facts to have somebody undermine me in that opportunity, and I feel that that's happened.
Okay.
And I want everybody to be aware of that.
I guess I'll just point out, I had names brought to me from basically both positions of the soccer association. I also appointed folks that basically had differing opinions among the city council.
Absolutely.
And I was hoping to have a good balanced, full, open discussion about it. And I just want to, I guess I was a little bit concerned when you said you had some concerns with the makeup of the committee, or just was it more of the discussion at the committee level?
Well, I'd say more of the, I think I could have predicted the outcome prior to even going to the review committees. I went in with an open mind and came out with a closed door. So I just think that all the facts weren't reviewed properly, and I think that there's, to undermine the specific people that you appointed to the committee, Mr. Mayor, coming from the Soccer Association. I know I've received a letter from the Soccer Association to pay never mind to the people that one particular person that you appointed to the committee, I find in bad taste or bad judgment. And I want to make that public record going forward. And I feel that a lot of the headway that the committee did make has been undermined in some level with this recommendation to you from them.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you. In listening to my colleagues' comments, I want to make it clear that from my perspective and my understanding of this issue, there is $3.8 million from the city to build this complex. And that is the city's contribution. And it doesn't matter, that was what I understood our commitment was. I wasn't my understanding was not any infrastructure issues, but that the soccer community was fully aware that part of this project would require some of those various things that you're describing, Mr. Weifenbach. And so I understand your concerns, but I also suggest that we have made a financial commitment to it, and it is this number of dollars. And if the grid that was presented to me is not reflective of the thinking of the soccer community, then I'm mistaken. But based on what I understand about this, it certainly appears to me that in their view, the site that has been offered in the motion offers the best overall site for this particular recreation facility to be built on. And on that basis, but I certainly wasn't urging my colleagues to look at any additional dollars in behalf of the city in any other way at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go further discussion. Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Just a couple points. It looks like there was 5 meetings. That seems like pretty extensive discussion. There were 3 councilmen, Okrepke, Chapman, Weifenbach, if I'm correct. I guess I'd like to see the point of views of the other council members. And then what I'm seeing is North Elkvale is $4.325 million. Wally Byam is $930,000. It doesn't say why they came up, if I'm correct, with the North Elkvale, because it seems more feasible to do the Wally Byam site. And if I was the person in charge, it seems like I would take the lesser of them and be able to accomplish more. So I'm trying to figure out why they came up with the North Elkville. I know the land would be free, but the infrastructure would cost you 3 times as much or 4 times as much. So can somebody explain that to me? That's my first question. That was on that committee. If I could,
Jim,
Mayor.
Why don't you go ahead and finish up and then we'll put it open there.
And the second part is I guess if I was in charge of the committee as well, I would take those 2 sites and from that, I wouldn't designate either one. I'd work on raising the money and doing what I needed to do first and then come back and I'd take those 2 sites and figure out which one's going to work best. If I was lobbying the council and I had it all out and it would end up being Wally Byam because it would be cheaper and I could figure out a plan and design that and get that going, I myself wouldn't, as a council member, wanted to designate just that one site. If it could be 2 and the soccer people could figure that out, which one would be more positive, which one would be more feasible, and convince the city council that that would be the better site. I don't think we have to say it has to be North Elkville. I'd say that would be a suggestion of this council. So it's hard for me to just say, bottom line, that North Elkville would be the one at 4.35 compared to Wally Byam at 930. So is there anybody maybe on the soccer task force or another councilman that has their point of view that was on this committee?
Okay, thank you. And we'll see if anybody brings it up. If not, then we'll actually bring it to the floor. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger, please.
Thank you, Mayor. To hopefully answer part of Alderwoman Hadcock's question, I believe the soccer people originally, when they come forward, were looking at the Wally Byam site. And this council said, no, that piece of property is too expensive. You need to find another one. So I guess that, in my opinion, that is why Wally Byam was off the radar, is because we deemed it too expensive a piece of property to give away. And then I just want to make one other comment. I agree with Alderwoman Olson that, you know, as it stands today, this city has $3.8 million to fund this project, and if whatever site we pick, we've got $3.8 million, and it gives the soccer people the direction that whatever that site is that they that we deem is the appropriate one, if it costs $4 million or $2 million to put the infrastructure there, if they want to use that $3.8 million to do that, that's fine, but that's all we have allocated for them is $3.8 million. So I'm going to say at this point in time, I'm supportive of I don't think we have a motion on the floor. We do have a motion on the floor.
Motion on the floor is for approval.
Okay, and I'm going to support that motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman let's go Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several questions and comments here, and they really all fit into the overall concern that I raised at Legal and Finance regarding the overall cost. What's the true cost of this? First, while I asked my question, is it possible to have on the overhead the estimated costs? Could we put those up? The 7 sites.
Do you have those? We'll turn to Dale Tech or to Robert Ellis. Go ahead, Sam.
Thank you. I have a number of questions here, and I just asked the council, bear with me. I have raised a number of these questions in the past, and this might seem like a lot, but I think it's important to address this since it looks like there is a motion on the floor to approve this tonight. Can someone let me know the status of the payment for the property taxes from May 2008 to present? Based on one of the emails that I saw from the potential donor, the prediction was that the valuation would be increasing $2 million on November 1. Do we have that?
I think we.
Okay. Should I just go ahead and state all of my questions? I can resubmit them later if I need to.
That's right. We'll try and take them one at a time if we can. Let's go to Marcia Elkins.
I guess I need clarification. I was asked by one council member tonight to check and see what the value was. The assessed values are not posted on the Sidwell system. That would be the November 1, 2008 assessed valuation, which affects the taxes levied in 2009 and paid in 2010. The question is, as stated, that what's the status of the tax payment? Again, the property is listed as being in the City of Rapid City's name until such time as the issue is resolved. The estimated value of the taxes that were due for that 6-month period is about $188 or something in that neighborhood.
Okay. Go ahead. You have another question, Alderman
Thank you,
Picker?
Mayor. It was, along with that, I would like to know what the approximated value is of the improvements that are needed to DeGeest and the value of this donation.
Okay.
It appears to me...
Sam, just a quick question. When you say DeGeest, are you talking about DeGeest Street?
DeGeest Street.
Can you give me the relevance?
I will clarify why I'm
Okay,
making
go ahead
that
and
statement.
give me the relevance, because we're talking about the soccer complex,
Right.
not DeGeest.
It appears to me that the land value, or the value of this land donation, far exceeds the cost of the DeGeest improvements, and I'm not sure why the owner doesn't just fix it rather than the city having to sue the owner. I'm concerned as to how this is all working. And it leads me to believe that this isn't simply a gift with no strings attached. I am also wondering, based on an email that I read in the stack that I was provided from 9/24/08, why the donor of the 80 acres has declined to release the information on the floodplain that was submitted to FEMA. As I understand, this area was significantly impacted during the 72 flood. It has also seen significant flooding from time to time since then. I can pull the message, it's in the stack that I have here, but as I read it, the owner has declined to release any of the information provided to FEMA regarding the property in this area.
Did you want to address that to somebody?
Can somebody answer that?
This, Marcia or Robert? Marcia?
If I might, Mr. Chair, at the time that information had not been submitted to FEMA, I believe it has, and it may actually be that the city has a copy of it that's been submitted, but I can't confirm that.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we need to review that before the site is selected. As I read my other concerns, I would like the council to note that there are 7 sites that have been reviewed, and the Elkvale site is the most expensive site to run infrastructure to of the 7 presented. The next question is, will the city need to use treated water to irrigate the fields, or can it be water from the creek? We have seen how much the school district is affected by the new rates in terms of irrigation costs. And again, I just want to make sure everyone understands that I would be more than willing to ask these at a later time, and don't expect answers tonight unless we're asked to be voting on this and approving this tonight.
Go ahead, Robert.
The plans that I've seen actually show a drilled well being installed at the site for irrigation purposes, so there would be no provisions for treated water, and there are no reflections of that in this estimate that you see.
So it would be what type of?
They would drill a well.
Drill a well, okay. Thank you. The messages that I reviewed indicated that an individual who has consulted for the city in the past upset the donor, the property owner, by suggesting that there might be a quid pro quo involving a TIF in exchange for the land donation. The property owner then asked that this person be removed from any consultant selection process relating to this site. How is the process being handled for consultant selection, and is it being handled by the city, and has anybody been excluded from that list?
Robert, why don't you address both those concerns? There's number one is, okay, go ahead.
Movement on a selection of a consultant. If it comes to the point that the city is involved in the selection of the consultant, I suspect that we would follow the typical process. It would be advertised to everybody within our database. Anybody who wanted to submit a proposal could, and we'd create a selection team to review those proposals, do interviews, and collectively as a group we would select a consultant.
Okay, Robert, there was also a comment that there was concern about a quid pro quo are you aware of any discussions or, I mean, let's get this out on the table here.
No, I'm not aware of any discussions about any quid pro quo.
Okay, thank you.
So a TIF is not being promised in exchange for this?
Robert?
I don't have the ability to promise a TIF.
Marcia, did you want to? Go ahead.
But I actually sat in on discussions where it was made very clear to the owner of the property that there would be no quid pro quo, that there was no trade-offs or anything, and that it would be up to the city council on whether or not a tax increment financing district would ever be approved, that no one could make promises to them because that would be a council decision.
Thank you. And the reason I remember that so well is because I was the one who said that. Alderman Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. The emails that I have a copy of indicate the soccer organization wants to use the land donation as their match, and that this, which I infer then that the city would then be responsible for remaining costs. Did I understand that correctly?
Robert? Let's go to Marcia.
There were discussions about that, and the information that was provided back to that group was that that would probably not meet the requirements of the council, but it would ultimately be a council decision. We did not feel that the council would accept that as part of the match.
Okay, Alderman Quaker.
Is someone from the soccer organization available to answer that question, whether that is part of their request?
Okay. And Sam, just for clarification, if you could just state the question one more time, and then we'll.
Thank you, Mayor. My question to the soccer organization is it your expectation that the land donation be part of your match to the $3.8 million the city is providing?
Okay. Now here's a little bit of the difficulty we have. My understanding is 3 different organizations which make up the. Okay, we have one. Do we have anyone that can speak for all the different groups? Okay. If so, please come up and identify yourself. This goes back to the issue we've been addressed the whole time, is the fact that we have multiple organizations all under the one umbrella, so it's been very difficult trying to get basically clear statements. Go ahead, and if you'd identify yourself, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Frank Bettman, and I'm on the task force. I'm also a spokesperson for the Soccer Rapid City organization. Soccer Rapid City is an organization that is comprised of the different soccer organizations in town. So I can speak to the council on the specific question that Councilman Quaker brought up. But what I can tell you is that, candidly, we don't know, and that's one of the reasons why we need to have a designated parcel. We can't put the cart before the horse. We have to know what we're targeting for purposes of our complex. We have put in a great deal of time and effort studying all the different locations that have been presented over now years, and the Elkville property is the one that presents the most benefits, not just to the soccer organization.
Okay, Mr. Bettman. I need to be fair to everyone in the fact that typically when there's a question asked from the dais, I don't let them basically expound and go into, but thank you for that, and we'll see if there's another question.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, Alderman Quaker.
And my question is, and I think this would probably be a question for our city attorney, is the property was transferred last May or June of 2008, and I think the clause in the deed is that it would revert back to the council after, back to the property owner after 5 years if there is not progress on the site. When does the 5 years start, Jason?
Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't reviewed the deed lately, but my recollection is that there is a requirement that the city use the property for recreational purposes within 5 years, and my assumption would be that the 5 years would start to run from the date of the deed, but without reviewing the deed, I can't say that for sure.
The date that the council accepted the deed?
Jason?
No, the date of the deed. The date it was executed by the grantor.
But the deed was not lawfully executed in the sense that it was not voted on by the city council to accept.
Yep, let's go to Jason Green.
Thank you, Mayor. That's a misstatement. In order to have a lawful execution of the deed, you have to have the grantor's signature, have it be notarized. The issue that's before the council is whether or not formal acceptance has occurred. That's a separate issue from effective execution of the deed. And that will be coming back to the council, I believe, in February.
Okay, very good.
So in February is when that discussion would occur, when the 5 years actually starts.
Jason?
Again, I would have to review the deed, but my inclination is that it would run from the date of execution regardless of the date of acceptance.
Okay. Alderman Quaker?
Thank you, Mayor. My concerns on this continue to grow. I'll just summarize my comments overall. Again, I want everyone to look at the 7 sites that are on the sheet up there. I realize that there's more to it than cost. This is the most expensive of all of the sites, and that is a floor or a minimal estimate of what the cost would be. The city has $3.8 million that's being allocated. There's already a deficit there of $500,000, noting that 4.3 is the cost of the North Elkvale site. So I'll summarize my comments as follows. With the emails, of the stack emails I have here, there's a lot of interesting reading, mostly non-interesting reading, but my summary is this. On 9/3/08, there was an email sent by the owner that there would be a $2 million jump, an estimated $2 million jump in the value of the property. We don't truly know what the value is because the property is now belonging to the city and therefore not subject to taxes. It's a mystery as to what the true valuation really is. I think we need to know, and I think an appraisal is warranted. On the 8th of September, there was direction, according to the emails I have here, direction from the mayor's office to proceed with a TIF. We have a new TIF process now, and it is my hope that the new TIF process will be followed and that there is not an expectation that if this is accepted by the council that there will be a TIF. One of the things that really concerns me is, again, as I previously stated, on the 24th of September, the owner refused to release any of the information provided to FEMA. I hope that information is subsequently released. On the 25th of September, the owner indicates that this is the worst city council ever, and I'm assuming that he's upset about the questions that are being asked. And I think that this whole issue, this whole site selection process has an odor to it, and I think that more due diligence is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
That's extensive discussion. I guess what I've came to the conclusion from listening to people on here is, number one, I think this is about this land and not a person, because you not judge what, even though I'm not happy with DeGee Street and that kind of thing either, you got to judge it for what this is talking about tonight, not what other issues are. So some of what, I'm not too happy on some of that stuff either, but I have to judge it what's happening tonight, not about DeGee Street and about this developer and this and that. This is about a North Elkvale property as a site for a soccer complex. In 5 years, if they do not come forward and do this soccer complex, after listening to the discussion, it seems like the proper thing to do is accept the site. If it ends up not being the soccer complex in the end, so be it. Long story short, the Wally Byam site and the different sites might be comparable in cash flow, but after discussing some of this stuff with council members of what Wally Byam site is actually worth and what we'd have to give, and instead of having the soccer people work for it, we would just be giving it it's easier to say if we give them 3.8, they can do as they wish and find the site. If that ends up not being the North Elkvale property, then in 5 years anyway it comes back to us. So With 5 meetings, the discussion, having 3 council members, I trust the council members on there that they have done this extensive discussion. I trust the people on there and the mayor that he had picked the ones that would have that discussion and be fair about it. Sometimes we aren't always happy with the committees we get put on or the people that are picked, but in the end, I think the process is done fairly. Bottom line is I'll make the motion to accept the, if it's not already on.
There is a motion on the floor.
Okay. So bottom line, I think the discussion has been made, and I do and understand some of Mr. Quaker's issues with this sometimes when we're kind of upset at other people for other stuff that it's hard to trust on the next thing that we're doing with them. But in this case, I trust the committee and I trust the council members and the mayor that this has been a fair process.
Thank you. Let's go to, and I'll ask the procedural question. Does anyone wish to speak before Alderman Weifenbach speaks for a second time? If so, please turn on your light. If not, let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make sure I clear up the fact that I don't think that, in discussion that, to make sure that you understand and everybody understands that I don't think that the committee was stacked. I think that there was other issues evolving from the committee that I think that I'm very disappointed in, that got pointed out, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that. Now, I have a question for Mr. Bettman, as he seems to be the appointed person, and if he would approach the dais. And
if you could ask your question, please.
Yep. My question, Mr. Bettman, do you understand what we're talking about here tonight? The fact that if this council so chooses to vote in the Wally Byam site, that the infrastructure costs, the roads, the water, the sewer, are going to be bared by the Soccer Association in reference to funding and 2012 money. There's no other available funds, to my knowledge, unless someone up here wants to provide a funding source to you. And I think that getting to this point is an area that I wanted to get to at some level on a factual basis so you people understand.
What I understand,
Mr. Bettman, please go ahead.
What I understand is that that is a possibility, but that is not a fact. All right? I understand it's a possibility, sure. We don't know where the various funding sources are going to come from. That's been part of the problem that has prevented us from moving forward.
I absolutely, and I'll make a comment, I agree with that there's been a level of, I think that there is an underlying assumption from the Soccer Association and the people in all the discussions that I've had with them is that if we pick a site, that site is going to be ready for them to play soccer on.
No,
I mean,
that's
hold on,
not.
Mr. Bettman. When I have a question, the point I'm getting to is the fact that their understanding was the 2012 funds were to pay for the building of the fields. And between that and their whatever they use for fundraising, once they identify a site, and the money the $3.8 million was not to be spent on infrastructure. So I want my council people up here to thoroughly understand. I sat on the committee, and I want to make sure that there was some comments from the council people earlier that all the facts weren't considered. They weren't brought forward to you at the Legal and Finance in reference to the guesstimates that we had that would be concerning what it cost. That was not a part of the scope of choosing the site. That was not a piece of the scope. So I'm hoping that in some level here, you and the council and the soccer group understand who's going to pay for this. That's the question that I ask. And I continue to ask and continue to get no answer for. I understand that they feel that this is the place that they want to build the soccer field. So be it. But I also want to have a level of understanding that when it comes back and they say, well, we need streets, we need water, we need sewer, that this council person is not going to support that. And I don't know that it's sounding from what I'm hearing on some of the other council people that that's not an option for them either. But that doesn't mean that we'll still be here at that point in time. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, because there's been an underlying issue with the soccer people that there's a feeling, because when you ask a question that solicits an answer, that for some reason you don't believe in the project or you don't believe in whatever that may be. And I want to make sure that that's clear. I can't explain it any more clearer than the fact that there's going to be, this thing is going to cost way more than that $5 million that was allotted up there on the guesstimate. That is probably the very bottom rung The TIFs that were brought forward started at $16 million and have since worked themselves down to, I think, the lowest one proposal TIF that I'd seen that came forward for this site was $7 million, not including interests and finance charges and all those things that go along with a tax district. I don't want to set the Soccer Association up for a failure by saying that this city council is committed to providing infrastructure to that site or any other site for that matter of being. And I want that to be clearly understood from your association, Mr. Bettman.
There's no question that there have been no commitments, no decisions, no final decisions with respect to any funding sources, possibilities. We understand very clearly that there are a number of factors that have to be reviewed, including all the dollars that will need to be spent for every site. We have to get the site selected, though, so we can move forward and begin the process.
Okay. I understand that.
Alderman Wyfenbach, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate that. And I just wanted to make sure that we had that understanding, and I appreciated getting to this level finally. Yeah. The other point I want to make sure is that that review committee did not select this site in reference to the cost of infrastructure to that site. That has to be clear and understood. It was based upon different criteria where a grid, I think, that everybody was provided to some level. Was there a lot of differences? Not really. But I wanted to make sure and be understood that that was not considered. The cost of infrastructure to this site was not considered in the vote that came forward to the Legal and Finance Committee or tonight to this council. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on that and understand. However the council votes, that's the way it is. But I'm going to make a motion to deny the site. That'd be my motion.
Okay, we have a substitute motion and a second, and that substitute motion would be to deny the recommendation from, I'm going to get this right, from the Soccer Task Force. Is everyone clear on that motion? Jason, that's appropriate motion, correct? Okay.
It is, and just so it's clear, the motion is to deny the request to designate a site.
To designate North Elkville as this says.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I want to thank you for selecting me to be on that subcommittee. I've been working with the soccer folks since they started about 3 years ago. And we looked at different sites, and we went through the process. And as Alderman Kroger was saying, that some of the sites were taken out of it just because it just didn't make any sense. We worked hard on when Malcolm took over as the chairman on this, and to take it to where we are today. And I'm looking at this site as a golden opportunity to turn in this soccer complex into a world-class place. I mean, it's a phenomenal site compared to all the other ones. If we just look at some of the costs that were mentioned tonight, and we don't have the vision to go forward, I know we all know that I'm that kind of a guy from Saturday, and I promised I wouldn't do that or throttle back on that, but I can't help myself. But I look at it, I said, I can see the possibilities out there that this soccer complex will bring to that area. If you just look at putting a soccer site out there and you look at the $4.2 million or whatever that could come up to be, I'm not sure how much time they really spent to do an analysis and actually figure out what the costs were going to be. But if you look at what's the possibilities and you look at potential multiplier effects out there, that this will bring other things, you're talking a huge economic development. You're talking about a huge economic impact to our community. And I think that we should do our best to encourage and to move this process along. There were some comments about a land match and using that money. In my opinion, and I'm trying not to derail too much on this, but to me that makes sense. I mean, these folks worked pretty hard to make this happen, to get this land donated to the city, and that was the best way the mechanism to make that happen. So I'm not sure if we should take the value of the land off the table as a matching. And of course, there's really no I'm not sure what the requirements of the matching funds are either, but a lot of this stuff is for later discussions. We're not talking, we don't know what the costs are going to be for the infrastructure. We don't know a lot of these details until a land site has been identified, and they can go forward with some more of their design so they can come up with the better figures. So, having been on the committee, and the vote was not unanimous, as Alderman Weifenbach said, but it was pretty lopsided in favor of the Elkvale property. So I would hope that we can see the value in this property and deny the current, or disapprove the current motion on the floor and approve this site for the soccer complex. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, the substitute motion on the floor is to deny accepting the recommendation from the soccer task force. For the discussion on that motion, let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I listen to this discussion, there are words here that I don't think are any part of anything I know or understand about this particular use of dollars. And I would reiterate again, there's $3.8 million of 2012 funds set aside for a soccer complex. That decision was made but recommended by a committee. I recognize the land associated with it has changed somewhat, but there was never, there's never been a discussion about match. This is not a project that requires match. What it requires is a gift from the city of $3.8 million, and if the soccer community wishes to have this project come to fruition, they need to raise whatever additional dollars is required in order to make that complex work. I personally don't have any problems at all if they want to use the $3.8 million to put in infrastructure. I think that's a decision for the organization to make, and that is where I stand. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no match. They just know that if they have that many dollars, and if they can't do this project with that many dollars, then they have to go out and raise money. So, and as to the discussion about tax increment funding, no proposal has come across anything I've seen that says we are proposing that. So I just want to make it crystal clear that from my perspective, none of those things have been discussed in any concrete way. Now, if I were on the other side of this conversation, and I have been, not with soccer, but with other proposals that have come forward to the city, we always think the city is a giant purse waiting to have money spent out of it. And that's perfectly fine. And you could have citizens come forward and ask us all the time for all kinds of things. Fix my road, put in a well, build a reservoir, fix my street. All of those discussions. We as council members need to look at what money we have and when we make a decision. And in my mind, all that we've discussed about and all that it is with a surety is $3.8 million from 2012 to go to the Soccer Association to begin building whatever it is they're building. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Let's go to Patty Martinson.
It seems to kind of boil down to the concerns is that we give them soccer 3-point-whatever million, that the soccer committee doesn't come back and ask for more money from the city because they aren't able to provide the funds themselves for their fundraising efforts. Is that basically your concern, that you don't want the city to be stuck with additional money above and beyond what we've already promised?
Patty, was that a specific question for Alderman Weifenbach?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Weifenbach, do you wish to answer that, and do you understand the question? Okay. Patty, could you just repeat the question?
Do you believe that you don't want the city to pay more and above the $3.5 million you're already committed to Vision 2012?
Okay. And Ron, just procedurally, I'll ask the question. First, do you understand the question? And second, if you wish to answer the question, because through our rules, you're certainly not required to answer a question that you're not comfortable with because of the fact that you haven't had a chance to research it.
No, I believe I can answer the question.
Very
That's
good.
fine. I think I understand the question. I think I've been fairly clear on it. I think what has happened is over this period of time, the Soccer Association and one of the reasons the committee was put together is because they're not clear on where they stand or what, I mean, they've been told, and I've been in the meeting when they've been told that the city would provide the land with the infrastructure. That's clearly what they have been told. That's why I wanted to make it very clear to them. My understanding is that's not the truth. I guess I'm the self-proclaimed truthinator, I guess. But the fact of the matter is that I just want to make sure that they understand so they can proceed whichever way they need to proceed. And to me, it's pretty well black and white that if they have $3.8 million, and that's what we're telling them they get to work with to build those fields, then that's what they got. But they're being told, and by the way, there has been a TIF that came forward to this committee, TIF boundaries and everything that had come forward to this committee. So if someone needs to see that, they can see that. But they need to understand that they have to find the mechanism to provide whatever infrastructure levels it is. And I guess if I had if the direct question would be, is there a concern about them asking for more taxpayer money? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think $3.8 million towards soccer fields in this city is more than generous. And I think that we have 20 fields currently. I believe that if they want to move forward with this 2012 fund, they've been allotted the $3.8 million. They need to understand that. And I'm hoping tonight, after tonight's meeting, because we finally got to this level, this point, that their spokesman tells me they have a clear understanding of that. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Alderwoman Martinson, you still have the floor.
So then if the soccer is unable to raise the funding they need to complete the 25 complex, they will not come before the committee again asking for additional money above what's already been promised by the council. I guess that's another question to you. I guess to address Ron's concern that we don't pay any more than we already promised.
Okay. Just for clarification, I think the appropriate question to probably address you is the message you're getting from the council is the fact that they've appropriated $3.8 million and there's no guarantee unless you have support enough from the council in the future that you don't have any additional money above $3.8 million. And the reason I phrase it that way is the fact that the council has not been asked and the council has not taken up the discussion of whether or not there should be additional funding. So we have to be careful how we phrase the question. Jason, I mean, is that appropriate? Okay. Mr. Bettman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The way you rephrased the question, do we have an understanding that there is no guarantee that there would be any additional? That's correct.
Thank you. Patty, anything else? Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first, I really appreciate the concerns of Alderman Quaker and Alderman Weifenbach, and I also appreciate the optimism of Alderman Okrepke and Alderwoman Olson. I agree that the potential here and the possibilities are great. And I like the fact that Alderwoman Olson and Alderwoman Martinson brought up the fact that even with this $3.8 million from the city, the soccer task force is starting out with a $500,000 deficit approximately. And that's just for infrastructure. I mean, you have to talk about developing the area so you can even play soccer on this land. So I assume that the fire has been lit and you understand that the fundraising process needs to get going, and I'm excited to hear as it goes along, and I'm going to vote against the current motion, and I am in favor of the Elkvale property.
Okay. Thank you. We have no further lights. Let me just remind the council the motion on the floor is a substitute motion to deny, or basically to deny the recommendation or to set aside the recommendation of the soccer task force to designate the East Elkvale property as the soccer site. Further discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. I didn't hear a whole lot. Let's do a roll call. I didn't hear a... Sure. Let's clarify the motion. The motion on the floor is a motion to deny the recommendation that was brought forward by the task force. Okay? Is everyone clear on the motion? Right, but the substitute motion is to deny the recommendation from Legal and Finance and from the soccer. Nope. Yes, everyone clear on that motion? The substitute motion was a motion to deny the recommendation from Legal and Finance, which was the recommendation coming from the soccer task force. Okay, everyone clear on the motion? I want to give everybody the opportunity. It's been a long discussion. I just want to make sure everybody knows where we're at. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor of the recommendation or the motion to deny, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Okay, let's take a roll call just to get the, I heard both. I don't want there to be any question.
Quaker? Olson?
No.
Kroger? No. Costello?
No.
Adcock?
No.
LaCroy?
Abstain.
Yep, and my apologies, Amber, I should have noted that.
Martinson?
Nay.
Weifenbach?
Aye.
Okrepke?
Nay.
Chapman, sorry.
Okay. 6-2. Okay, motion fails on a motion of 6-2. We're back to the original motion, which is for approval of the recommendation of the site selection. Okay, everyone clear on that motion? Further discussion?
This is a different motion, isn't it?
This is the original motion.
Okay.
Just a reminder, point of clarification, this was the original motion, and there's a number of folks that spoke 2 times to that. And following our own rules, you're only allowed to speak twice to any motion on the floor. So now some people actually talked a total of 3 times because we had a substitute motion. So I have to be a little bit careful. So those of you who have spoken twice, unless the council so chooses, you have spoken your designated amount. Let's go to, sorry about that, Deb.
You're okay.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate that I am excited to see this move forward and see how the fundraising machine of this task force moves. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Thanks, Aaron.
Further discussion. The motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Ms. Okrepke, okay, very good. I just for clarification, was there one no or were there more than one no? Okay, let's do a roll call again, please. Let's just make sure we get it on the record.
Olson? No. Aye. Kroger?
Aye.
Costello?
Aye.
Adcock?
Aye.
LaCroy? Oh, sorry. Martinson? Aye. Weifenbach?
No.
Okrepke?
Aye.
No.
Baker, sorry.
Okay. Motion passes on a 6-2 vote with Alderman LaCroy abstaining. Is that correct, Amber? Okay. Very good. Thank you, everyone. I know that was a long discussion, but sometimes we need to make sure that we get everything on the table as far as concerns of the council. So thank you, everyone, for the discussion. Alderman Okrepke, did you have any?
Yes, I did, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And stop me if I'm out of order, but I would like to make another motion that we accept the land.
I don't believe that would be in order because it is not on the agenda. I'm going to turn to Jason Green.
Well, the reason why I was asking because we couldn't make that motion until we got through this process.
Sure.
And rather than delaying these kinds of thoughts and perhaps throwing well, I'm not, just so that the soccer folks know that we've accepted it. And so I would ask my colleagues for a little indulgence on this one, at least consider it. Thank you.
Let's go to Jason Green. I don't think that we can take that motion up tonight. Is that correct?
It's not currently on the agenda. Your
We would have to-
rules allow you to add
By
an
unanimous
item by
vote.
unanimous consent. I wouldn't recommend taking an action of that substance without having it on the published agenda. It's simply not the best practice. Also, I would note that it's currently going to appear on one of the committee agendas, I believe, in February.
Okay. Alderman Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Then I would like, if I could, to put this on the Legal and Finance Committee meeting for next time.
Okay.
Since, I mean, a lot of this stuff was waiting for this particular vote. And so if we can do that, that'd be great. Thank you.
You can do that individually as an alderman, but collectively as a body, I believe that would be out of order since it's not actually on the agenda. But as always, any individual council member has the ability to place it on the next Legal and Finance Committee meeting. Okay, Jason Green, you're not going to correct me on that, are you?
I'm just going to point out that I believe the council has previously taken action to continue the item, so that council action would supersede any action that the committee would subsequently take. The action will have to be in accordance with the council's prior direction, or the council could change its direction.
So your recommendation is to actually take this up in the timeline that's already been established by the council?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that discussion, everyone. We are on to, just a reminder, item 57 was actually removed from the agenda because that was actually tabled, and it was inappropriate to actually, it was tabled actually at committee level, so it should not have appeared on our agenda. So we're on to item number 58, and our chair of our Public Works, Alderman Ron Kroger.
Item number 58 is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an agreement between the City of Rapid City and Ferber Engineering Company Incorporated for the Dover Street drainage improvements in the amount of $98,070. I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the Public Works meeting, there was a constituent who asked the question that what the total construction costs were for this project.
Yep. Let's go to Robert Ellis. I believe he has that information. Go ahead,
Yes,
Mr.
I do,
Ellis.
Mayor. The total cost of the construction of the project is going to be $990,000, so just shy of $1 million. One component of this design contract is not only to do the design of that construction, but also to do the Red Dale Drainage Basin Design Plan, and that accounts for almost half of that. And it's a fairly intensive study that looks at that entire drainage basin. So in my opinion, this is a very fair contract that we've negotiated for the taxpayers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Weifenbach, you still have the
Thank you.
floor.
I just want to make sure that that got answered because he may be looking for the minutes tonight. So.
Okay, very good. Appreciate that. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Part of this, in phase one, is this change to Heartland Court, and I just would like to know where the impetus, I don't disagree with this, but I just want to know where the impetus to realign Heartland Court came about. Was that at whose direction, and what was the thinking in regard to that?
Okay,
It's
Mr. Ellis.
not, excuse me, it's Harder Drive.
Harder Drive.
You know what? I withdraw my question.
Okay.
Because it doesn't involve Heartland Court, does it?
Okay.
Maybe I need to ask, because I did look. This does involve a Jackson Boulevard curb cut.
Okay.
So maybe that does need to be explained.
Let's
Thank you,
go
Robert.
to Robert Ellis, our Public Works Director.
It does involve a component, about $285,000 of this project is for the relocation of Heartland Court. Heartland Court currently goes out to Jackson Boulevard. The plan is to relocate that so that it goes to the north and connects with another residential street. Improves the function of the arterial street, and it doesn't affect any neighboring property owners. I believe the city is the property owner adjacent to Heartland Court.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Were there any no's? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 59, Mr. Preston, bids.
Thank you, Mayor. We just have the one bid item on the agenda this evening. Is for an automated side loading refuse collection truck for solid waste division. We received 5 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Sanitation Products in the amount of $226,990.
Second. We have a motion and a second to accept the bid from Sanitation Products for $226,990, correct?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are on to item number 60 under appeals. Marcia, just for clarification, do we have a recommendation on 1661? Oh, well, you're both waving at me, Cyril. Who, I'm going to Robert or?
There was a 59 BC.
Oh, you're right.
I believe.
You are correct. I'm running on 2 agendas here. So, let's go to item number 59A, which was the special council get-together, and I believe that was Alderwoman Deb Hadcock. Or, I'm sorry, Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give a little bit of a report on the, I call it the workshop. Earlier in the year, Council President Deb Hadcock and I got together and discussed on what we could do for the council for teamwork, communications, and so forth. One of the things we identified was that as a council, a lot of people think that we spend a lot of time together, which we don't. So to try and get to know each other was one of our goals to do, and communications and families is the things that we identified that we needed to work on. During that conversation, Council President Deb Hadcock and myself, we come up with a two-part section to the retreat we did. We had the skating party with families and so forth at the city ice arena. And then the second part was a workshop on communications. And I'll just kind of, to me, I want to really thank the council for that workshop, because it was a challenging one as far as it was a test that was a personality test that had to be taken, and several people probably felt vulnerable, I can even say it. Vulnerable taking it and sharing it with each other. But I think during that class, I think we all got to know each other a little bit better and understand each other. And I walked out of it knowing a lot more about my other council members and appreciating them even more of what they do. That's pretty much my comments on that. I would appreciate any comments that the council members have, if they learned anything from either one, or what they thought of them, if they'd like to share or not. But otherwise, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up.
Very good. Further discussion? If not, thank you so much for the report. Let's go to 59B, which is an update on the parking garage. I believe this was Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
If you could, Robert, just tell us an update, what's happening for the community and the council members, so we're all on the same level of what's happening with the parking garage, please.
Robert?
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Deb Hadcock. I am pleased to report that on Saturday, the parking ramp was open, and and it was a fast-track project. We really got this thing done fast, construction completed in a timely manner. We did add 174 spaces with the addition of that third-level ramp. And we also made some improvements to the energy efficiency. Previously, there were incandescent light bulbs that were used to light the facility. We replaced those with LED lighting fixtures, so it has reduced our consumption. And we did address the pigeon roosting problem that we had over there. So hopefully it's a more friendly parking ramp for the customers that use it. And there will be a little bit more work that needs to be done, some fascia, some painting, and some sidewalk. But the parking ramp is available for all the leasing holders to park in now. So.
Okay. Robert, I think you forgot the most important
On
line.
time, on budget?
Thank you. I just want everybody to make sure they heard that. On time, on budget. Thank you. Anything else, Alderman Hadcock?
Yeah, just to thank you. We this council has made a goal of taking care of the downtown, adding parking, and has achieved that goal. And thanks to Mayor Alan Hanks, this third level was put on, and we have moved one step closer to our goal. And with Destination Rapid City and some other things that are happening downtown, it just adds to the ambience of downtown. So thank you, Mayor Alan Hanks, and the Public Works for getting that done. You did an awesome job, and on time and on budget, always a positive. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
This is probably a dumb question. Are we going to do we do a ribbon cutting for this event?
Robert?
We hadn't planned on that, but we did issue a press release today. So
I think we should do it. Shoot, I think we should do a ribbon cutting.
So I think what the comment is, when you get the press release, cut it in half, right?
I think this would make the investment report if we cut the ribbon.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll have someone, Robert, if you could just have somebody contact the chamber and see if they could come over and do a ribbon cutting for us. That's a very good suggestion. Thank you, Alderman Olson. Okay. Any further discussion on that item? If not, we're on to 59C, which I believe was Alderman Kroger, and it was on a report on the conditions of East North Street.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't speak for other council members, but this past year I've been, have received numerous phone calls and actually been cornered on the street and accosted about the condition of East North Street. And I'd just like our Public Works Director to tell the public, if anybody's going to be watching this council meeting, where that street stands, and then I do have a question for him after he answers that.
Very good. Let's go to Robert Ellis.
If I could give a little bit of a detailed explanation here. We recognize that the street condition in certain parts of East North is in very serious need of repair. And what our plan in the immediate future to address that, we're going to go out there and cold patch. Right now asphalt plants aren't open, but we can cold patch the potholes, and hopefully that'll get us through the spring. And we're going to spend about $50,000 to $75,000 to do some overlay in the areas that need it most. Most notably, La Crosse and East North is an intersection that's in dire need of some attention. Now, long-term repairs that are needed out there, you may recall that this was formerly a state highway. And through a road swap agreement, the city agreed to take ownership of that on the condition that the Department of Transportation fund 50% of the total reconstruction of East North Street from Campbell, even a little bit farther south than Omaha. Now, we have hired KLJ Engineering to begin that process of the design, and it is about an $18 million project. It's going to be a very expensive project, and it's going to take a number of years to build. Now, we were on schedule to actually begin something in 2009, late 2009. However, our funding partner does not have the available resources to partner with us yet. Due to the problems that the DOT is having across the state with all of their projects, they're having a difficult time meeting that match obligation. Now, in visiting with them, it appears that they will have some money available in 2011. And that is why we're going to have to do some near-term patches until that can be reconstructed. But the wheels have begun to get that street reconstructed. However, until the DOT finds a mechanism for increasing their revenues and meeting their obligations, it's going to be difficult for the city to take that project on by herself.
Okay, let's go back to Alderman Ron Kroger. Start with the floor, sir.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. And, you know, at one time, this was the main entrance to the city of Rapid City, and it still has a lot of people that come in to the city that way, and it's a disgrace to have people that have never been here before to drive on that street when they first enter the city. So I'm glad to hear that we are going to do some patching. And actually, did you say 50% is DOT's doing 50%, we're doing 50%?
That is correct.
Okay. Would they do that on the patching also?
I doubt it, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I appreciate Alderman Kroger bringing this up, because it was something we had talked about at the CIP. And I too, in our Ward 2, have had people calling us, and in fact the other day they go, can't you just call up that guy and throw some patchwork down, because we can't, the potholes are just huge. I lost my tire or something. And so I appreciate Ron Kroger bringing this up, and that it is an important concern for citywide, because there's a lot of people that use East North and La Crosse. So thank you for doing that, Robert, and thank you, Ron Kroger, for bringing that up. That is a big concern.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do thank Robert, because what has happened is we have been getting the complaints with the roads and so forth, and I'm glad to hear that they have a plan with the potholes. But one of the other things I want to thank him for is Mr. Ellis did do a report on his comments now, and were mailed out to the North Rapid Civic Association to publish in their paper and on their website also. So that way, because so many requests have been coming forward, so hopefully when that comes out this month, we'll have that in print also, but also hopefully in tomorrow's paper too. So we can tell the people that call that it's going to be done. Because earlier in the year, I was always saying 2009 was when it was going to get started, and we've hit some snags on that, so we really need to get it up to snuff. So, thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Ellis. Are you able to speak as to some of the design criteria of this, if I have some questions on it? You are, okay. Specifically, I'm wondering if they're planning on putting bicycle lanes, because I know that that street is heavily used, sidewalks are terrible to ride on, and it could be a nice conduit joining different areas of Rapid City to the bicycle commuter.
Mr. Ellis.
That was a design component we asked our engineer to take a look at. We are restricted because of narrow right-of-way that exists up there, but we do have areas that have excessive right-of-way, and our goal is to make this a pedestrian-friendly and possibly bicycle-friendly arterial corridor. So it's not just being designed for vehicular traffic. We're taking into account both of those other modes.
Okay, thank you, Robert. I have a great view of the future of this town being very pedestrian friendly, especially to bicycles. It's small enough to where you could get from one end of the town to the other, even if you were just being at a leisurely pace in half an hour. So I would hope that for East North Street and all other roads that would work as arteries, we really push to see bicycle lanes and safe lanes. So thanks.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. As long as we're talking about streets in this area, I want to pass along a compliment on Anamosa Street. It looks great, and that was as bad, if not worse, in some areas than East North Street is now, and it is very, very nice. So I want to compliment Public Works on their efforts on that. Regarding East North Street, I'm not sure how far south of Omaha it's going to go, but I hope that it's going to go just past, at least past the railroad tracks, because you need a chiropractor after crossing that.
It's good for their business.
Yeah. And I love my chiropractor, but it does need to be addressed.
Robert, do you have an answer how far south it goes?
Yes, I do. For those two comments Alderman Quaker made, Dale reminded me that the Anamosa project was on time, under budget.
Thank you.
So I want to point that out.
Can you repeat that?
On time, under budget.
Thank you.
The second question there about the extent of the scope of that project, it will actually go all the way down to Quincy. So it'll go past Omaha, past the railroad track, St. Joe, down to Quincy.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anything, okay. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate some of the things that we said, and just not to be repetitive, but East North Street is terrible. But I did see people working on the street filling some potholes up there. So I wanted to say, I don't know if the rest of the council people did know that Mr. Ellis is on top of that to some level. But I also wanted to reiterate to my council folks that the budget time is an opportunity to talk about fulfilling self-fulfilling prophecies or whatever they may be to fill potholes in our area. And Alderman Okrepke had asked for $50,000 at the budget time and got shot down for filling potholes. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that fact. But moving forward, going back to the pedestrian area on East North and hoping that new design allows for people to cross that street. Because I know myself, I've practically ran over probably 5 or 10 people in the last 5 years on that street. So it's hard for them people to get across there and see them, and there's nowhere to cross it. There's very few lights, and there's a lot of opportunity to cross it. So I'm hoping that we look at that. Thank you.
Okay. Just for clarification, you didn't actually run over anybody.
No, I didn't. No.
Okay.
I almost did.
Oh, okay. I thought he said he ran over somebody. I think he did.
They were in one of them potholes.
I just wanted to clarify that because I can see it in the record. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, thank you everyone for the discussion. There again, just a point of clarification. The City of Rapid City was in the process. We were in the design phase. We had the money identified from our side. The issue with East North Street is not from the city side, it's from the state side. The state does not have the funding available to match up with their commitment. That's the reason why the East North Street project has been delayed. I just want everybody to understand, quite honestly, in the mayor's office, we've received a number of calls on that also, and unfortunately, it's the state's financial situation when it comes to transportation money that's actually delaying the project, not the city's. But comments well taken. We will make sure that we're up there trying to patch the potholes and trying to do some overlay. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now we are on to item number 60. Marcia?
Applicant's representative has asked that items 60 and 61 be denied without prejudice.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny without prejudice both items 60 and 61. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I ask why this is
Marcia?
going away in this fashion?
Yeah, it's been on the agenda. I think where Alderman Quaker's leading, it's been on the agenda for a year. Why
I mean,
now?
I would like closure, not just,
Yes.
If I might, in visiting with the applicant's representative, they indicated that because of the change in the economic situation, they're not sure at what time they'll move forward with this project, and so that's the reason for denial without prejudice. They recognized with that action that they could bring it back at a future time, beginning with the Sign Code Board of Appeals. And at that point in time, they'd know more about what kind of sign they wanted to construct.
Okay, Alderman Quaker, anything else? Okay, let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very
Motion
much.
on the floor is to deny without prejudice both items 60 and 61.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question for whoever wants to handle this. What is the status of the sign? I mean, has it been approved? I mean, is it to our position to approve this sign at this point, or before it went to deny without prejudice?
Marcia?
Again, the indication from the applicant's representative is they do not intend to build the sign as they'd originally proposed with the additional height. And so that's why they no longer require the exceptions.
Okay, so did they, if I may?
Sure, go ahead.
So did they want to make a sign and we said no?
Marcia?
This conversation's gone on longer than that conversation went on. So again, the recommendation or the action by the Sign Code Board of Appeals was to deny the request to build the taller sign. They had appealed that. It's been on the agenda since November of '07 because they wanted to look at various options. And at this point in time, they do not wish to proceed with that sign.
Okay, just for clarification, Marcia, they have a sign in place. What they were asking for was to, okay, there's no sign in place.
No.
What they're asking for was permission to build a sign that would require additional stipulations, and they're not moving forward with that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So they're in full compliance with the sign ordinances currently?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Now, if I may.
Yes.
So to see if I got this, so if I understand this correctly, they're backing off because the Sign Board of Appeals said no.
No. Marcia?
No, that is not correct. They've indicated at this point in time they don't want to move forward with the sign of that height.
Okay. Mr. Okrepke?
And was that, again, is that because of the requirements? I'm going, this is where I'm going. I mean, if sometimes things get so bogged down and hard that they just give up and say, forget it. And so that's where I'm going with this.
Marcia?
If I might, the applicants continue this on a number of occasions because they had hoped to be able to look at some options and bring forward some items for consideration by the council. That's why it's been continued this amount of time. At this point in time, they do not wish to build the sign that tall, and as such, they're not moving forward with the project. That's their decision. It has nothing to do with the fact that this has been continued at their request since November of '07.
Okay, so just long as it wasn't because that they were running into too many roadblocks or stumbling blocks.
Okay. Marcia?
Continuation has been at their request.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you. Everyone clear on the motion? The motion on the floor is to deny without prejudice both items 60 and 61. Further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 62, please. Who reads that in? Is that Alderman Quaker? Item 62, please.
Item 62 is Donald W. Rice, Progressive Auto Sign Code Appeal. The request is to continue to February 2, 2009 council meeting, and that is my motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this item to the February 2nd, 2009 meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the public hearing items 63 through 81. Chair will look for a motion to open the public hearing on items 63 through 81, please.
So move. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So we are in the public comment period, items 63 through 65. I do not have any speaker request forms. Does anyone from the audience wish to speak to any of the items 63 through 65? Seeing none, we will move on. Just a reminder, at this point, we do leave the public comment period open. The chair would ask if any of the items 63 through 65 need to be removed from the consent calendar. Okay, very good. Chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 63 through 65.
So move.
Do we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar, items 63 through 65 inclusive. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Quaker, did you?
I'm voting aye on this, but I do have a request that the Planning Commission minutes for item 65 be attached if possible. The next item, it looks like there was some discussion at Planning Commission and a split vote, and I would like to know how that discussion went.
We'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Won't be part of the motion, but Marcia, I think, will make sure that gets done. Okay, one more time. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That takes us to the end of the consent public hearing consent calendar. Chair would look for motion to close the public hearing on items 63 through 81 at this time. We have a motion and a second for to close the public hearing. Discussion on that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. It does take us to the consent public hearing items. All these actually need to be pulled, so we're going to take these one at a time, if we could, please. Items 66, 67, 68. With that, let's see, that I believe is Alderman Kroger reads that in. If you could start with 66, please.
Item number 66 is a request by the City of Rapid City for a vacation of right-of-way on the entire 2nd Street right-of-way from the South Street right-of-way south of the south lot line of lots 16 through 18 located north of the intersection of 2nd Street and Signal Drive. I would move approval.
Second.
Approval with stipulations, Marshall?
With stipulations.
Okay, straight approval? Okay, very good. So the motion on the floor for item 66 is for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Marcia, can you provide some history as to why this has come forward, who asked for it, and what the benefit is to the taxpayer or to the city to do this?
Marcia?
This property, adjacent to this property, is owned by the City of Rapid City. It's the site of a reservoir. And as such, there have been improvements that have been proposed, including some underground vaults. As part of that, because structures are involved, they are vacating the right-of-way. Again, the ownership will go back to the adjoining property owners, and in large part, that will be the City of Rapid City. So it accommodates the construction of the vaults and other improvements associated with the reservoir.
Okay, so this request came from the city and benefits the city.
Yes, it does.
It does not does there benefit to other landowners?
Marcia?
I don't believe so, other than that they get improved water service.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everyone clear on the motion? Motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 67, please.
Item number 67 is request by the City of Rapid City for a vacation of right-of-way on the entire South Street right-of-way located east of the intersection of 3rd Street and South Street. I would move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 68, please.
Item number 68 is a request by the City of Rapid City for a vacation of right-of-way on the remaining portion of St. James Street right-of-way located west of the intersection of 2nd Street and St. James Street. I would move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. And I'd just like to remind everybody, if you notice, Marcia was actually using the computer and not the projection, the projector. Yeah. So, yes, technologically, we're advancing. Sorry about having to tease you about that, Marcia. Okay, item number 69, please. That'd be Alderman Quaker, if you could read that in, please.
We do all three of them?
Can I do 69 through 71 as one motion? Or do they need?
Nope, I'm sorry, we can't do that. We do have item 71. We're going to have to pull that. If you could just read 69 and 70, and then we'll take 71.
Items 69 and 70 are alcohol licenses for Black Hills Chapter of Germans from Russia Heritage Society for a beer license scheduled for an event on February 21, 2009, and Carolyn's Casinos, 1141 Deadwood Avenue, transfer from Carolyn's Casino, 512 West Boulevard. I move approval of items 69 and 70.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of items 69 and 70. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion 70, you just, Alderman Quaker, I think the recommendation was to continue this to February 2nd.
On 71?
Yes.
Okay. Item 71, Wall East Development, Inc., doing business as Jackpot Casino 2 for a malt beverage license transfer from High Plains Security at 4030 Cheyenne Boulevard. Move to continue to February 2, pending conditional use permit approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue item number 71 to the February 2nd, 2009 meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 72, please.
Item 72 is a wine license renewal for 2009 for North Star Inc., doing business as Hunan Chinese Restaurant, 1720 Mount Rushmore Road, for retail on-sale wine license. I move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That does take us to the end of the consent calendar, which we didn't take up. We did them individually. So we will go on to items 73 through 81. Item number 73, please.
Item 73 is first reading of ordinance 5461, ordinance amending 17.06 of the municipal code for rezoning from no-use district to general ag district located at the northern terminus of Valley Drive and east of Valley Drive and north of South Dakota Highway 44. Recommendation is to approve, and that is my motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval on item number 73. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 74, please.
Item 74 is first reading of ordinance 5462 and ordinance amending 17.06 of the municipal code for rezoning within the described property as requested by Ron Bangs of Advanced Engineering for Ross and Judy Rhodey for a rezoning from general ag district to light industrial district located at the southern terminus of Kennel Drive. The recommendation is to approve, and that is my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 75 is first reading of ordinance 5463 and ordinance amending 17.06 of the municipal code for rezoning within the described property as requested by Spurlick Consulting for Gary Rasmussen, Walgar Corp. For a rezoning from office commercial district to low-density residential 2 district located at 4182 Wisconsin Avenue. The recommendation is for approval, and that is my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 76, please.
Item 76 is first reading of ordinance 5464 and ordinance amending 17.06 the municipal code for rezoning within the described property as requested by Spurlick Consulting for Gary Rasmussen and Walgar Development Corp. for rezoning from low-density residential to low-density residential 2 district located at 4182 Wisconsin Avenue. And I would offer a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion?
Mayor?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Could I briefly ask, I have forgotten what the definition of low-density residential to low-density residential 2 is. What's the change?
The difference is you're allowed, I believe, townhomes actually, and what else can you put in there, Marcia?
Basically allows a 2-unit townhome or a duplex, whereas the single family is only allowed in the SFR.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 77, please.
Item 77 is first reading of ordinance 5465, an ordinance amending 17.06, the municipal code for rezoning from low-density residential to low-density residential 2, located at 4182 Wisconsin Avenue, and I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Item 77. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 78, please.
Item 78 is first reading of ordinance 5466, an ordinance amending 17.06, the municipal code for rezoning within the described property is requested by Spurlick Consulting, Inc. for Gary Rasmussen and Walgard Development Corp. for a rezoning from office commercial district to low-density residential 2 district located at 4182 Wisconsin Avenue, and the recommendation is to approve, and that is my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 79, please.
Item 79 is first reading of ordinance 5467, an ordinance amending 17.06 of the municipal code for rezoning within the described property is requested by the city of Rapid City for rezoning from no-use district to low-density residential district east of Valley Drive and west of Elkville Road, located north of the Copperfield subdivision. The recommendation is to approve, and that is my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 80, please.
Item 80, first reading of ordinance 5468, an ordinance amending 17.06, the municipal code for rezoning within the described property is requested by the city of Rapid City. Better take a breath. For rezoning from general ag district to general commercial district located southeast of the intersection of South Dakota Highway 44 and Elkville Road. Recommendation is for approval, and that is my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Is this the rezoning for Bank West corner by Wally Byam? Is that what this is for?
Marcia?
I have to admit, I don't know the answer to that question. I would not be surprised if it is. We're in the process of doing that.
Do you have a picture of where it's at? So it
No,
is?
this is a first reading, so I don't bring
Okay.
pictures to put on the computer.
We're in trouble because I have a question on the second one too, so, sorry.
Okay. I think we had a motion on the floor. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 81, please.
Item 81 is first reading of ordinance 5469, ordinance amending 17.06, the municipal code for rezoning within the described property is requested by the city for rezoning from no use to general commercial located south of Samus Trail and east of US Highway 16. I yield to the floor.
Move for approval.
I'm just saying.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Guess what my concern is if, even on the general commercial going from no-use district, is there low density by it? Are we approving general commercial right next to low density without being able to see it even on first reading? It's kind of,
Marcia?
Of right-of-way for Samus Trail that was annexed in to the city of Rapid City. It is being rezoned in accordance with the adopted comprehensive plan for this neighborhood. So it's just that narrow strip where Samus Trail exists.
so it's the road? No.
Samus Trail?
This narrow strip is a part of the road, or?
Yes.
Okay, I guess that was my concern, just making sure that we're not putting general commercial
Okay.
next to low density.
And it is in an undeveloped area.
Correct.
So
Okay.
far, thank you.
Okay. Marcia?
And if I can answer the question on the previous item,
Yes.
that was the Bank West property, or the property that's been proposed for
Thank
sale
you,
by the
Marcia.
city.
Okay, thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
Motion on the floor is for approval on item 81. Further discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
I'll save my questions for later.
Okay, very
First
good.
reading.
Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Preston, the bill list.
Thank you, Mayor. The bill list totals $7,241,424.83. There are no additions or changes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the bill list for an amount of $7,241,424.83. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question can be Mr. Preston.
Go ahead.
Can you please explain to us every one of those items? Just kidding.
The answer is yes, he could, but do you want him to? Okay. Motion on the floor is for approval of the bill list as published for $7,241,424.83. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Green, do we have an executive session? I know the answer, but if you could.
We do, and I would ask the motion maker to include that the purposes are for those permitted by SDCL 1-25-2.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go in executive session as per allowed under SDCL 1-25-2. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're in executive session.